I just listened to all 19 albums by Arthur Brown, and here are my thoughts. Now, going into this, I knew virtually nothing about Arthur Brown. I knew that he was a pioneer in shock rock. In fact, in my last video, I had said that I was going through the crazy world of Arthur Brown. That was before I knew that Arthur had a very long and prolific career that involved spin-off bands and solo albums and partnerships. But he is most famous for a hit single in 1968 called Fire. Here, give it a listen.
I'll take you to burn. Fire. I'll take you to learn.
Now, Arthur Brown is kind of one of those musicians that a lot of musicians know really well. Like a few examples. He was the priest in The Who's movie Tommy. He also later played a priest in one of Bruce Dickinson's music videos. I believe it was for The Chemical Wedding. He also provided a reading of some Edgar Allan Poe material for, I believe it was an Alan Parsons Project album. So he is connected. He has some sort of legendary status among other artists. It just seems like he didn't really break into mainstream audiences. And I learned through this process that not only is he a pioneer of shock rock, but he was also a bit of a pioneer with prog rock and with electronic music as well. But if you ask me, hey, what genre of music is Arthur Brown? I would just say his genre of music is Arthur Brown. Like, he has some folk albums, some blues albums, some electronic albums, some proggy albums. The one thing he always is unapologetically original. One way that I've kind of been describing his music as I've been going through it is like, imagine if David Bowie, Alice Cooper, and the first few King Crimson albums were all combined into one. That's kind of his general vibe. He also really blurs the lines between music that is really quirky or humorous in some way and music that is very dramatic and emotional. Like, I can't tell you how many songs I listened to him where it started and I thought, oh, haha, he's using a funny voice or he's saying some funny things. And then by the end of it, I started getting tears welling up in my eyes because it was just such a pretty song. I'm glad I spent a little more time on the artist review. I'm going to spend a little less time on the album by album overview, just because I think that's how it worked out. So his first album is The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, released in 1968, and this is a kind of dark, proggy, occult rock sort of thing, and this is one of his best albums, really groundbreaking for the time. The entire album has this kind of vibe of him being a very like charismatic, satanic circus ringleader sort of thing. If you want a taste of Arthur Brown, check out the song Fire. If you want more than that, check out this whole album. This is probably the best place to start if you want to get into him. Then, still under the name The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, in 1969 they recorded the album Strangelands. It wasn't released until the 80s, but it was recorded here in 1969. And this was his worst album. Oh my God, the entire thing was like an incredibly disorganized, unpleasant acid trip. This is as far as his experimentalism ever got. And although songs like Planet of the Universe and Endless Sleep are okay, it was not enough to bring this album back. So The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, the band, disbands for a time, and he forms a band called Kingdom Come. And in 1971, they release Galactic Zoo Dossier. And this album was pretty good. Wasn't my favorite, but several solid songs on here. I thought the first track, Internal Messengers, was pretty good. My favorite song on here was Sunrise. This is one of those songs that turns out to just be very dramatically beautiful by the end of it. Then they release a self-titled album just called Kingdom Come in 1972. And I thought a little less of this album. It was a little harder to get through, but the first track, entitled Water, I thought was a great song, probably in my top 10 favorites of Arthur Brown. Then in 1973, they released an album called Journey, and this album was amazing. Almost all electronic, which was incredible for 1973. Like, he was a pioneer in many things. Spirit of Joy from this album was amazing, but the whole album was really good, I thought. Time Captives was great, Superficial was great. Then he goes into a solo career, so he's just touring under Arthur Brown now, and he releases an album called Dance in 1975. I didn't love this album. I found it kind of hard to get through. The sound of this album is kind of like an electronic jazz pop sound. The first track, We've Got to Get Out of This Place, was my favorite from this album, but the rest of it really just came and went. Then in 1977, he releases an album called Chisholm in My Bosom. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but that album was considerably better than Dance. Monkey Walk on here was a pretty good song, although there's a better re-recorded version of it on a later album, leaving the final two songs as the best on here, The Lord Is My Savior, and then the title track, Chisholm in My Bosom. The Lord Is My Savior is a very gospel-y track, but because Arthur Brown is singing it, it is just dripping with satire. And then the final track is like 20 minutes long, but it's one of those songs that feels like 5 minutes when it's done because it just keeps you so engaged the whole time. Then in 1979, he partners with an artist named Vincent Crane and he releases an album called Faster Than the Speed of Light. This, I think, is his proggiest album. So if you're really into prog, this should be one of his albums that you check out. I think the final track, which was the title track, was my favorite from here. But again, the entire album, really, really good. So you should check this one out. He then goes back to his solo career and releases two albums in 1982. The first one is called Speak No Tech, second one is called Requiem. Speak No Tech was pretty solid. A lot of it is kind of like experimental electronic until you get towards the end of it. Then it takes quite a bluesy turn, which was really nice. It kind of broke up the mood of the album. I found Requiem a little bit more difficult to get through, though I did really like the title track. The rest of the album came and went. He then partners with an artist named Jimmy Carl Black and releases a very bluesy album called Brown, Black, and Blue. This is where the better version of Monkey Walk is. A couple covers on this album, like Hound Dog and Stand By Me. I also really liked the final track called The Lord Is My Friend. But, you know, this album was okay. I liked it around as much as I liked Requiem, a little less than I liked Speak No Tech. Interestingly enough, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown comes back, and they release two albums. The first is called Tantric Lover, and this album takes a very hippie-ish approach, a very like peace and love kind of hippie music. I really liked this album. I thought it was up there among his better ones. The second album, released in 2003, is called Vampire Suite. I like this album a little bit less. It's very fun, it's very gothy, and it's very campy, and it's, from what I can tell, a concept album about vampires. I thought Africa and Vampire Love from this album were the best. I forgot to mention the song All the Bells from Tantric Lover. Was an amazing song. Loved that one, definitely check it out. At this point, he's still got a couple of really good albums in him. Next, he releases an album called The Voice of Love, and this is under the amazing world of Arthur Brown. I really liked this album as well. It's very folky, but some of it sounds more like American folk, but a fair bit of it sounds more like European folk, and I liked that style a lot. He then partners with a musician named Rick Patton and releases an album called The Magic Hat. This was released in 2012, and I don't know if this is a controversial opinion. I don't know if I'm going to get any flack for this, but this album here, The Magic Hat, is my favorite Arthur Brown album. As soon as Street Wolves started, I knew that this was going to be a serious album. And Street Wolves ended up being one of my top 5 favorite Arthur Brown songs. But a lot of other great songs here, like Candy Floss Horn, Morning Break Free, Golden Sun from this album was an amazing one. This whole album was just great. I would still say his debut album, The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, is maybe the best place to start, especially for its impact on music. But this is not far behind. Check this one out. This, sadly, is where his career falls off a little bit, at least in my opinion. So he's back under The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, and he releases an album called Zim Zam Zim in 2013, and then another album in 2019 called Gypsy Voodoo. I didn't love either of these albums. Junkyard King from Zim Zam Zim was my favorite song from here, and it's actually a pretty solid song, so that's worth adding onto a playlist. And then you had Footsteps in the Desert on Gypsy Voodoo. I thought that was the best song on there, also worth adding to a playlist. The rest of both of these albums were really forgettable to me. He does bring it back at least a little bit in 2022. He releases an album called Long Long Road. I thought this was a pretty solid album. Especially track 3, Going Down, was a big highlight for me. But yeah, the rest of the album was strong enough to keep me engaged. And then he releases an album called Monsters Ball, which was also in 2022. Monsters Ball has a few covers on it, like Lucifer Sam by Pink Floyd. I wouldn't have known that was a cover if I hadn't gone through Pink Floyd a while back. I Feel Free is another cover on here, I believe, of a Cream song. This album really plays as a Halloween album. It is very fun and campy and ghoulishly over the top, and it accomplishes its purpose in doing that, at least. It made the album feel a little more like a novelty, though, to me, and that knocked it down a few points. There is my album ranking. So I would say that from The Magic Hat down to The Voice of Love, these are all albums that I had a very positive listening experience with. From Chisholm in My Bosom down to Brown, Black, and Blue, these were reasonably solid albums that it might be worth checking out if you're a big fan of Arthur Brown or a fan of this kind of music and just haven't gotten into it yet. And then everything after that is just albums that didn't make that strong of an impression on me, or in the case of Strangelands, albums that I actually disliked. So yeah, that is my review of Arthur Brown's discography. He is definitely an acquired taste. Thank you for watching. Electric Light Orchestra is up next.